everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Richard Lewis Show. I'm Richard Lewis, and joining me live from German quarantine in a Hawaiian shirt for reasons I don't understand. It made sense when you were working an event that was themed around Hawaii, just wearing them now in Germany. Don't know what's going on there. But anyway, it's Harry Russell, esports commentator, known as JustHarry or JustHarry GG. To some people, he's also a musician. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, dude, there's so much to talk about, Richard, to do with that. I can't wait to get you asking about, the musical background.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, we'll just start with, obviously, why you're in the most drab-looking hotel room I think I've ever seen. It's got a nice institutional green.
Yeah.
What are you going on? What's going on?
So I'm out here for VCT and then doing Pro League as well. So like some Valorant hosting and then CS casting. But obviously you still got to quarantine for 5 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's not the end of the world. It's all well and good. I've been laptop gaming. That's been pretty cool. Yeah, the hotel room is interesting. I'll say that, right? Like it's not going to be on like the top 10 hotels I've ever stayed in. There's no AC. It's really hot, and that's why I'm wearing all the Hawaiian stuff, Richard. I don't want to ruin any of my actual on-camera clothes because I'm sweating. Like, it's a good thing that you can't possibly smell or even really see the detail on this, bro, because I'm disgusting right now. Like fully open with it. Like, this is gross. So yeah, man, I'm having a great time. I'm having a great time out in Germany.
Mate. It takes me back when I first moved to Vegas. The very first 6 months I spent in Vegas, I barely spent any time at my house. I would go out to the strip. I would get fucking wrecked, and then I'd be like, "Well, I'll get a hotel for the night because I'm in the building that I'm wrecked in." And like any attempt to even get into an Uber right now would just be unpleasant for all parties. So you get a hotel room. They're great. They're cheap. You go to sleep. You're like, lovely AC battering down on your hungover body, and you think, right, I'll get breakfast. You get a steak, set up steak and eggs. You get a fucking
what is this life?
High tower Bloody Mary with a giant stick of celery in the top, nice and spicy. That gets rid of the hangover, and then you go, you know what? I've got a bit of a taste for it again. I think I'll have a drink. Hammer the minibar. It's 5 p.m. Well, no point going home now. May as well go out again.
May as well book another hotel. And by the end of it, you've just been on you can just name by like the quality of the cheapest room they do, like how these hotels are ranked. Dude, this sounds sick though. I've always wanted to go to Vegas. Yeah. So what was? I mean, I know it's a bit weird me asking you all the questions now, Richard. What was Vegas like living there, man? Like, and how does it compare now to being back in the UK?
Well, obviously the UK shit. I mean, like no one disputes that.
Do they stand up at all? Like, is there is something's better in the UK?
I like the countryside, like where I'm at the moment. I mean, it's not so great because I get the power cuts. I don't know if you still get those.
Oh, great. The power cuts. That's good, man. When they've got
Venezuela
a D at the front. Yeah.
I'm allowed 4 hours of power.
I
use it for esports content, right? So probably shouldn't. But yeah, what happens is because it's all old power lines. Whenever there's a storm, your power will go out. I've had about 5 or 6, so like one every 2 months since I've been back in the UK, pretty much. But that's all right.
Sick.
And they don't last long. They have to send a guy out to like reset the substation or whatever. But I like being a bit isolated. And I will say, while you're isolated in Vegas to a certain degree, isolation in the desert's not as nice as isolation in the forest.
No, I can imagine that, man.
But Vegas was great. Man.
I really want I used to think I wanted to live in like cities, right? I don't know if you were at all similar when you were growing up, but it felt like it was going to be so cool, like the idea of, because I kind of came from like small little village, like down on the south coast, like we're talking couple of 100 people living in it, right? Like And so this idea of like living in big cities always felt cool. And then like, man, after being in big cities and getting to like go out to like smaller places, I want to live in the countryside. I want to be as far away from like the next nearest person as possible. That sounds incredible to me.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Yeah, I think the city does beckon to you because, especially if you've grown up in small town life, right? You know, because it really is boring. You get sick of the same old faces. You know, there's this inherent baked-in inconvenience to everything you do in a small town. You know, for example, if you miss your school bus, it's an awkward conversation with your parents because one of them's going to have to turn around and come and pick you up and drive you to school because there's one bus a day, and if you miss it, go fuck yourself. Or as my grandfather used to say, go peck shit with the hens. That's what he used to say. So, wanting to do anything, like, you know, where I grew up, you know, things just closed immediately. Like, you know, 5 o'clock, there was just like nothing to do.
Yeah,
you know?
and like weekends weren't just, you know, wasn't just closed on a Sunday. It was like closed all weekend. Like, and like, the other thing that I hate is like, you know, if you ever don't get on with anyone in a small town, it suddenly makes going anywhere like one of the most potentially awkward things ever, right? Like you have a really high chance if you only know 30 people in a town, like the odds are that few of them are going to be cunts, and you're going to run into them every now and again. So, yeah, no, man, I like for me the end goal, Richard, is to move to somewhere like France where houses are pretty cheap.
Do you speak French?
Right, like that's my. I don't speak any French, but I like to think, you know, I'm malleable. I'm down for a challenge. I'd learn. I know French. No, I was about to say, right, I know the French people won't be terribly keen that I have no understanding of the language, but I'll make an effort. I'll try to learn. I want to live there, though, because I love the history, mate. And, like, you can buy a fucking castle out in the middle of Normandy for, like, 300,000 euros, man. Like, I would live in a castle. I don't know about you, but that sounds legit as hell.
Yeah, well, it sounds great. And this is the downside. This is why I'm not in the hardcore countryside right now. Unfortunately, the way I make my money requires a pretty decent internet connection. Yeah. And if I did go like the log cabin, you know, which is like you say, on a societal level and on, you know, a people level, sounds immensely tempting, very much so.
Yeah.
You know, just one day, just turn the Twitter account off and then just go to Alaska and that's it. And then maybe write a book, maybe drink myself to death, whatever happens first, right? Brilliant, perfect. But the problem with that is, of course, then I would be dirt poor because the apparatus through which I make my money all require a fucking, you know, internet connection and a webcam. So
you could set up like a series of middlemen, right? And like, and just record onto like CDs and stuff and like, you know, send them down the chain so that they make it back. It would be this cool, you know, almost like a film, you know, like what's that one with the post box, bro? And they're like, I don't even know, man. I only know it from Family Guy. There's some like time travel in post box or something. Yeah, dude, it's like that film. Quality little segue there. So
yeah, segued into a movie neither of us have seen. Very strong, reminiscent of CS Summit.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ, bro! Oh man, some of the CS Summit stuff, like we still talk about a variety of those jokes now, man. Like you
brought Peter Yarrow back immediately. I respect that.
Yeah, I didn't have to wait long. Yeah. Dude, the Peter Yarrow one. Oh man, when we had Darth Mike on CS Summit, I don't know about you, but like when he started that story, at first I was kind of worried because I was like, where the hell is this going? Like I have no idea.
It was still pretty bad if we're honest about it. He literally said a known celebrity has essentially been like cyber stalking his brother. I mean, like that's an outrageous claim to like make. I mean, like this is the thing. The fact that I came out of that summit having not said anything outrageous at all, and Darth Mike's just there name dropping obscure musical celebrities. Like as being some sort of fiend, like what the fuck is happening? Like,
dude, that's craziest. That summit event was still one of my like highlights of the year. I don't know how you found it, Richard, but like that was such a. Oh, dude, summits are always fun though. I love it when like, especially while everything's online, man. It feels like such a good way to like cover games in like a bit more of a casual where you can like deep dive into stuff if the dialogue's there, but also like you can just be a bit more freeform with it. I really like that, right? I think like there's so much CS at the minute that like summits feel really refreshing both to work and to watch because it is just something, you know, a little bit different. I'm all about that, man. I love like trying to have a lot of fun with it.
Well, you brought me to my first serious question, which is...
Oh, nice. We had to get there eventually, right? I was thinking, thus far, this is still the intro, so...
Yeah, well, listen, if you want to bring up movies neither of us have seen to not answer this, you're more than welcome.
Okay, great.
But so, look, I think, and this is what I noticed during the summit, because obviously I've heard you and Hugo, you know, cast quite a bit but mostly I would say 90% of what I'd heard was ESL. ESL commentary, and you do in the Pro League and other events and stuff. And so when I heard you guys kind of riffing and doing a different style at the summit, that was when the penny dropped for me. Like, oh, actually, these guys are really good and really smart, and they've got loads of like, there's loads of like wordplay and references, and there's quite like there's a lot of layers to what they're doing here that they either don't do when it's an ESL event, or it doesn't come across. And I think this was underlined recently with the We Play, the Academy League competition you both just commentated on, which had fantastic production that really augmented like your style. And I said on the most recent episode of By the Numbers, I said like those guys killed it. That's some of the best commentary I've heard all this year. And I think unfortunately, because it's Academy sides, people will have missed it. But I urged people to go out and like seek it out, because there was so many like genuinely laugh out loud funny moments. And so the question is, now that I've set the table, is there a sort of pressure to have a different, more serious style over at ESL? Is there an input there that makes you approach it differently, or is it something you naturally do because you think the prestige of the tournament kind of dictates a more serious approach?
Yeah, so firstly, Richard, thank you very much. Like, I know you're not the kind of person who just like, fluffs someone up for no reason. So I really appreciate like the kind words that I'm kind of blown away. With ESL though, I would say that like it kind of depends what show we're doing. Firstly, like if it's Pro League, and it's like a month-long event, and we're in like group stages where, like it doesn't really start to like heat up massively till you reach the playoffs and where teams are going. And like you have those early games where the kind of implications of the matchup are a little lower. You can be a bit more free with it. We always like make an effort to try and make them be like more reminiscent of like having a lot of fun with it. But then whenever we get to like the more serious kind of time periods, we do want to try and like give the respect to the CS. I still think that that's like important, right? But I think another part of it was also just that we're both like very, very aware that at some point soon LANs are going to come back, right? And it's like that's inevitable. So I want to feel like we've at least practiced, like doing the more serious stuff again, and not just, get back into like an arena environment where people have paid money to come and watch the CS, and me and Hugo are just up there like goofing around like it's a comedy club. I would love it, but I don't know if I don't know if everyone else would. And like for me, I don't just want to be someone that people go, oh, this guy's really funny. I want it to be like, oh, this guy, like he can hype stuff up, he can get me excited. And so we've been trying to like lean back into like practicing that again, and like getting used to the more stereotypical like color and play-by-play like mindset. But I really love doing like the more light-hearted events, and like where you can take a bit more levity with it. I really like that. And I think that is one of the good things to have come out of this online period, was like people having to kind of change the style of commentary that they use.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of criticism in the community, and I think we talked a bit about this during the summit, when, people were saying that, like, it felt like a lot of commentators couldn't win, because there's no getting away from the fact that online Counterstrike isn't as exciting as LAN Counterstrike, and the high notes, the high beats don't hit the same, because a legendary play from Simple Online might make your jaw drop, and you might legitimately, your voice might go up a couple of octaves, like you're 13 again, and that might come across on a broadcast, and everyone will share in that excitement. But then if you add to that the soundtrack of like 8,000 people roaring in unison because they can't believe what they've seen, and just that collective astonishment, that's always gonna overshadow what we're doing online. And so a lot of commentators were being criticized for either being not hype enough, which I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, if I'm not excited,
I guess I can just, right. Oh, dude, no, I never understand that. Like, because because I think like there's nothing like essentially what you're saying is like you want someone to force excitement, like, and I think we can all agree that that sounds worse than if you are just reacting genuinely, right?
For. It's like you're either not excited enough, or they say,
it's all fake.
I don't like Anders, fake hype.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Great. Okay, cool. I like you have to find this sadly like this impossible middle ground that's just infinitely spanning, because you know casting is so subjective in terms of like you know what people want from it. There are some people who listen to like you know the dumb shit we were doing at Summit, where like we're just sat there, you know, like I'm trying to think what game it was. There was that one game where it didn't matter at all. Like, it had no bearing on the outcomes. I think it was a 5th, 6th place decider. I think you remember this, Richard.
Yeah,
and we just... And so, you know, we kind of have like a podcast of our own over this series, and it was hilarious. And I have no doubt there were some people who enjoyed that, but there were also, you know, likewise, a bunch of people who I know for a fact didn't like that. You know, it is super subjective, and everyone wants different things. I think that like the real challenge right now is, and this is something I say to like a lot of like casters who haven't had a go in an arena. Like I was speaking to Mitch, right, from Valorant, Mitch man, and I was saying like, just you wait till you get in front of a crowd, because you're going to be surprised, like both how good it feels, how your like the nerves disappear pretty quickly. It's more like adrenaline. And I said, like, thirdly, it will feel like the easiest casting you've ever done, because I think in a way it is. It's like the actual people that are there watching the Counterstrike are almost like deciding the ebbs and flows, right? And you're like this conductor that like helps draw it all together and like tell this story, you know, but really you're like feeding into the hype of everyone else in the room, and that's kind of the thing that's like pumping you up. And so it means that, you know, it's just like one less thing to keep track of, because it's all just happening so naturally, you know, it's so fluid, everyone's getting excited, so you're getting excited, you know, you're to it, and it all just feels like it slots into place. Whereas when you're online, you know, it's like you really carefully have to try and like measure, you know, is this exciting, how impactful is that, how much emphasis should I be putting into this storyline? And all that choice is on you, as opposed to having, you know, 8,000 people there clapping along and kind of being that spirit level to judge it against. So yeah, no, I think arena casting is the easiest casting you can do. And that's why it's been a bit of a shame that we've been without it for so long now.
What was the last arena event you did?
It was so as a duo, me and Hugo have only done 2 arena casts in English, and both of them were Pro League finals. One was our first LAN event as a duo, that was in 2018, and then we did the 2019 one right at the end of the year before the pandemic happened, and that was the last arena event we did, and that was also the second arena event we ever did. And then we just went right back into doing like studio and online again. So it's really weird for me, because like whenever I talk about, you know, like the feelings of being on LAN and like having, you know, like the crowds, we haven't done that many crowd events. Like I don't have this like mega big link to it like people, you know, like Alex, like Machine or Sponge or people like Henry, you know, like I don't have this big tenured background of all these LAN events to really like say I relate to, you know. For me, it's still pretty new and exciting. And that's like why I really, really like the story of like this Academy League, for example, because it's almost like these are people in that same position where it's all with the goal to get to LAN and actually get to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just crazy how much the fucking pandemic has kind of like fucked everything up. And I think about where we would be, you know, collectively as a scene and how it would look different. There's definitely been a number of careers, I think, that have been arrested, let's say. And, you know, a lot of people think about teams and they think about players when we talk about the online era. It's kind of interesting because there's a lot of people, and again, this is a comment I see often on Reddit, you know, when I'm trolling it for dumb people. And
it's like scraping a net along the bottom of the ocean, you know, and you're just seeing what kind of shit you turn up along the way. And it's glorious, man.
Except the net always returns full. It is a bountiful harvest every time. So anyway, yeah, I see this comment a lot. That is that this is the worst crop of commentators we've ever had, and the golden era. It's so sad because we can all remember it, and everyone sucks now. And I'm like, half of these motherfuckers haven't even had a chance to do it in a
Yeah.
stadium yet. What do you really know? I mean, you know, if you judged DDK and James Bardolph just on those late night Face It marathons they used to do, and I've been in the Face It offices, right? James and DDK had hammocks. This is no joke. They had literal hammocks outside the casting booth because they would do the European, then they would have 4 hours where it just wasn't worth going home in London, obviously. So they would just get in a hammock for a few hours, have a nap, and then come out and do, you know, four NA matches and rinse and repeat for, you know, ECS. And it's like, if you judged James and DDK on the fucking 3 a.m. shit houses versus craptastic at fucking, you know, from NA featuring 10 players you never, if you judge them on that, guess what? They don't sound amazing. You put James and DDK in a stadium, they fucking crush it. So people need to be very careful about when they're assessing talent, because I think environment makes a massive difference to whether people do their best work.
Yeah, mate. I'm very glad that you bring this up, Richard, right? Because there's so many good commentators, right? Like outside of the ones that like everyone knows when like you think about the casters that we have now. You know, I'm talking people like Dinko and Hawker, right? I think they're a very underrated duo, you know, and they're starting to get like a lot of events on the come up, and it feels like they're starting to get like all the opportunities that these guys deserve. But it's one of these things where like I think they're good now already. I hope that they're given an opportunity on LAN in front of a crowd at like the soonest kind of opportunity, because I think it's such a good way to understand like just how good a talent crew can be, like, you know, how high that skill like how high their ceiling is, right? I think whenever you look at all the big moments, all these like legendary caster lines, the thing they have in common, mate, is that they're all with a crowd of people hyping it up, and you know that's when you deliver these like incredible, you know, it's the Big Apple and Snacks is hungry, right? There's a reason why that sends shivers down your spine. Not only was Matt like, you know, the best caster mechanically to ever touch CSGO as far as I'm concerned, and he was like, you know, really in his element here, but also he has like all this experience doing it on LAN in front of a crowd. He's got the crowd like hyping him up while he delivers this like incredible line, and if that moment had taken place online, I wouldn't have been even you know 10% of what it was, right? I think even when you look at like for example, like the Zywoo Ace ramp from I think it was the Grand Slam right at the end of the year, or sorry, I forgot the name of the event, but you know the one I'm on about. That's Zywoo versus Na'Vi. He aces them. Alex actually counts to 6. Because it came out of nowhere, and so I remember, man, that makes it great. But it's like when you look at that play, and you look at like, because Alex's casting on that clip is great, apart from counting the 6 bit, but I think he just thinks that's hilarious. That is like a monumental moment. So is that heroic Cadian clutch, but they still don't like spring to mind on the same level as like one where you have these huge crowds behind them, even though the clutch itself is like very, very mechanically impressive. Within the context of the series, it's huge, but it's like it's hard to marry up against that same level you get when you have 8,000 voices behind you, you know, like all feeling and riding off that same energy as you. And then lastly, like to go on to this point about, you know, like Reddit kind of and their thoughts on this. I don't understand how no one can see the irony in the statement like, we never should have chased away all the old talent. You don't know how good you had it till it's too late, because fuck these new guys. It's like, well, it's like, come on, like you're so nearly there. You've so nearly reached this like self-awareness, but you're just short. Like it doesn't make sense to me, man.
They can't reach self-awareness because just as they hit the point of awakening, this resplendent voice comes in the back of their head and it goes, but Reddit's not one person. Anyway, and so I am absolved. It's like we're different people or something, bro.
Oh,
like,
no.
They don't understand what consensus is or mob mentality, and they just give themselves a pass. You know, I've said this before on other shows. The thing that blows my mind the most is just this idea that to praise someone or a set of people, the thing that must go with that praise is to put somebody else down or to criticize something else. It's like, you do realize that's a complete non sequitur. They don't have to, there's no linear progression of that statement. Like, I really like Harry and Hugo. That's all you need to say. You don't need to go so much better than Machine and Sponge with a fake life. And, you know, why do you add that bit?
I never get it. Like I say I never get it. Like I feel like I can try to put myself in that headspace where someone goes like, this way, you know, like I show that I'm putting them at the top of my list. But mate, I don't really think anyone cares about, like, you know, where it doesn't bother me if I'm top of your list, third on your list, if I'm not even on the list, right? Like I just like it. If you want to tell me, you know, something nice, that's lovely. That warms my heart. But you don't need to then wreck the people I work with in order to serve a compliment, you know? Like you can just say it. And I also think, like, you know, this is I think that, like, at least the social media side is very, very interesting. What feels like it's kind of happened ever since the pandemic has occurred on social media. Because I feel like there's one group of people that have kind of thrown themselves into social media and they like rely on it as like a great deal of like entertainment and like keeping positivity up. So I think on one hand, like a lot of people have got pretty devoted to people and like are out here, you know, like supporting others, and actually like that side of it's been good. But I also think on the other side, there's like this big idea of people maybe forging like these parasocial relationships with, you know, folks who are on the cameras and doing the shows, to the point where they think that it's like okay to harass them over tiny little things or opinions. And it's like, you know, this kind of stuff has been happening on the internet for a long time, but a lot of the messages I get now are a lot more like deranged and personal and like deep in that regard, right? It's like people have been really fucked up by all this time indoors, and I can't say I blame them. You know, it's not been easy. Folks have been dying. You can't travel. You can't go anywhere. Like, you know, shit feels fucked. Like, I get it. It's a rough time to kind of, you know, but I don't understand like using and like weaponizing social media to just wreck people at will. I don't think that's a good way to live your life for you as an individual or to the people you're doing it to. I really don't understand the end goal here, Richard. And I can't think about it for too long, or else I'll go insane. So
my approach has always just been, you know, how I approach life. Like I'll be nice to everyone, but if you're a cunt to me, I can out cunt you 100%.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good way to do it, Richard. And I think you've got to really, really, you know, if there was a biggest dick in esports award, maybe. Now that's the socks that you need, Richard. Biggest dick in esports printed on the side.
Make of that what you will. Turns out you're going to be disappointed either way. But yeah, so look, here's a question for you. You're kind of like me in a lot of ways, the good ways. In the sense that
I only take that as a compliment. So yeah, it's interesting that. But
good. Yeah. Because you kind of came off that conveyor belt of UK talent that cut their teeth at an I-Series. One of the things we've got in common is we both worked with forgotten legend Mark Cross. Who is, I used to do a podcast with him way back. I don't know how many episodes we recorded. Not many. Gone forever now. But he was a legend. I loved him. Miss him. And he used to do Call of Duty and CS in the UK stuff. But yeah, your first event was I-58, which is the multiplayer Insomnia events. My first one was I-28, to put it in perspective.
Jesus, yeah, okay. So 30 I-Series ago.
Yeah. So
gee, that's insane.
So, but I've casted I-Series finals. I've done one with Jay Atkins of Quad V. I've done one with Angel Dust, the Finnish Counterstrike source player. And you've done one with, I believe it was Crozzy. And so I wanted to talk about this because this is like the start of your casting journey. A lot of people go to an I-Series just to have fun, just to get drunk. You sleep in a tent or the god-awful Red Room, which is just filled with the worst humans imaginable. And so some people end up casting the finals because everyone else is drunk. It's, you know, it used to have a real community event, but I'm guessing that wasn't the case for you, and you kind of went there taking it seriously. So my question
is,
man, why commentary, and why would anyone want to do that to themselves?
Well, so like I wanted to commentate for ages, right? Like I really, really liked it. I remember I used to love watching not even just CSGO, like when I was younger, and I think it was MLG had like this Sky TV channel. They had some like old MLG Sky TV channel, and it was great, bro. They put like Battlefield on there, they had Halo on there, they had all these games. And so I used to watch all this stuff, and there were two roles that interested me. Like one was the commentators, one were the players. And I kind of, I would love to play professionally. I think I'm pretty good at video games, but I don't think I'm the level of a pro player, and I don't have the kind of mindset to dedicate in that way. But what I do like doing is like, being creative and kind of like, being able to tell stories. So I did a bunch of online stuff, and I like made a little portfolio of like pretend casting, right? I'd never really done it seriously, but I made this little portfolio, and then I learned about Insomnia. And I was like, ooh, I didn't even really know what it was, being real. Like, considering within the UK, I think if you said Insomnia to like anyone who games, they're going to know what you're talking about, right? I was pretty uninformed about this whole thing. And so, I got asked to go. I shared a room with a Rocket League caster at the time, Gregan, who's a sound guy. I think he's still doing like real well for himself now. So we were both there, and then I got to meet Crossy, and the other guy I was doing it with was this dude called Brod, which is bread in Swedish, but he wasn't Swedish. He just called himself that for some reason.
Great.
And, and so, Crossy was actually great. Like, so I didn't know anything about the guy, like, but he kind of explained to me how long he'd been in esports, how long he'd done like CS stuff, and, talking to me about Insomnias from eons ago and all that. And it was great because he helped put me at ease a lot. Like, I was mad nervous, even though it was just an Insomnia, which I think is how people would look at it. Like, for me, it was a big deal, mate. And, I wanted to do right by all these people that were having a great time in this fuck off, hall in the middle of Birmingham, all just playing Counterstrike. It was sick. I loved the vibe, man. I loved everything about it.
It was at the NEC, wasn't it?
It was at the NEC. Yeah. So, and dude, like, even that blew my mind. Like, I'm walking through this convention hall and I'm thinking like, oh, this would be so cool if this became my job. Like, that's what I was saying to myself when I first get there. I'm like walking through. I have this little talent like pass that lets me like, go wherever I want. And oh, that was the coolest feeling, man. I was like a bullied little anxious kid back then, like I was real quiet. And so suddenly I have this pass that lets me go wherever I want. And I'm like, ooh, can't let this go to my head, but I'm going to. And so I'm like going into like the cloakrooms and stuff where you're not meant to go, just flexing my raw power that I can go anywhere.
You sound like Loader. You want to be careful, mate.
But yeah, and so then, I get to do the CS. We were observing, like we did all the production ourselves, but that part was fine by me. I'd kind of been used to doing that online. And bro, like the moment I did it, there wasn't that many people watching because, like what Insomnia is like, normally it's not till the grand final or like, playoffs kind of roll around and then people get interested because either you've been eliminated and so you're down to watch, or like, you're just kind of passing by and you want to see what's happening. But like we actually drew a pretty big crowd, and it was surreal, bro. Like, when you kind of pop a headphone off and you can hear your voice like coming out the speakers, and I'm like looking and there's like 200 people like watching. I had some guy message he was going to murder me, which was pretty cool. He was like saying stuff like, standard I series. I get a message. He's like, mate, you better watch it. And he sends me a picture of me like sat there at the casting desk, and I'm just like, oh, that's creepy. Like, I didn't know that this was standard esports communications yet. So I get that, and I'm like freaking out in like this semi-final game. And then I think I told Crossy, and he's just like, yeah, just block it. Like, like standard, just get rid of the cut.
Like, you can tell, like, the great thing about the fact that you've worked with Crossy and I've worked with Crossy is that we both know, like, he's got that, like, esports has just happened to him kind of look. His weathered face, his beautiful weathered face, and the constantly half-open eyes, and just nothing phases Crossy at all.
Mate, if I remember correctly, he was buying a horse when I was. He kept talking about. He kept saying like, "Yeah, once like this horses, is all over, I'm gonna go get a horse, and I'm gonna, and that's what he was looking forward to." And I was like, "Mate, I'm not thinking about horses, bro. I'm living in the." in the moment, in the I-Series moment, getting told I'm going to die by...
Understand at the very... I think Crosby was at the very first I-Series I went to. I mean, like, so he must have been in the shit longer than me. So, I mean, you know, the idea that he's retiring and buying a horse, like, God bless him. Like, thank God. He made it. He lived. He survived, you know. Like, but it's such a mad come up because, you know, that was... the I-Series happens in August, right? So that's August 2016. And then by November, you do the European Minor Championships, the qualifiers for Atlanta, which were hosted by PGL. And suddenly you're there with, you know, Machine. You know, obviously you're paired up with Hugo. You're suddenly commentating not on UK teams that no one's ever heard of, you know. You're doing the big boys, you know. You had Ents were there and Hellraisers were there, Heroic were there, the Godsent with Pronax was there. And so in terms of a rise, I'd struggle to think of a caster that went as quickly from, you know, obscurity to now I'm suddenly commentating an irrelevant event for tier one, essentially a qualifier for a top tier event. So what happened there? How does that leap occur? Because I know the theory is whenever people do that jump, people always assume it's nepotism or cronyism or something.
No, I mean, like, so I only done an Insomnia, right? So, you know, in terms of like contacts, I didn't really have anyone. But the one thing I did have was like, you know, I said I made this portfolio, and then like I got all my VODs of Insomnia. I got all my VODs from doing TWC back on a Zubu, you know, with E-Frag.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you know, like that was great. And so then I send an email to PGL, because like obviously when you're like trying to get started, you're emailing everyone, even if you know like you're probably not gonna get hired, like you're just kind of taking the chance that maybe they bring you in anyway. And so, you know, I sent them like I think it was like 2 emails, and I heard nothing back for ages, and so I was like, oh, I'm not getting it. And then like randomly out of the blue, I got this message like, yeah, do you want to come out to Bucharest and do the minor? And bro, like, considering, you know, the minor is an attachment to the major, and this was like the second real like kind of thing I'd ever got to do, that felt huge to me, right? Like that felt like, wow. I think I'd done a minor online for PGL already, but you know, online casting, especially when you're new, feels like very, very different to getting asked to go and do it on site. And so they took a bit of a chance on me, like they fly me out. I get to work with Matt and Henry. That was like my first experience of getting to work with, you know, like these like big talent names. That was wild, you know, like Thorin was there as well. It was me, Thorin, and Red Eye on the desk as like the 3 people that would do desk work, and occasionally they subbed like me out for Henry or me out for Matt. And bro, like I remember I was terrified, like being on a desk with Thorin and Red Eye, who are like these 2 you know, like grizzled legends of the scene. And then there's me, who was never even trying to be an analyst anyway. And I'm like sat there, you know, like trying to keep up with him. And bro, you know what Doran's like? This guy's so quick, it's terrifying. So, you know, he's on the desk wrecking me. And Red Eye's like, yeah, by the way, like, because we were all talking like really friendly in the green room, right? It's all just banter. At least that's what I tell myself, right? Hopefully.
You never can be sure.
Yeah, no, right? Red Eye goes to me, yeah, it's like, by the way, when Thorin is just wrecking you, like, you know, maybe do say something back, because otherwise it just looks like bullying if you're just going quiet. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm just so nervous, bro. I'm like freaking out. And so like Duncan can tell that, and he's like trying to, you know, taper what he's saying so it doesn't just look like I'm like getting ruined on this desk segment. Oh, dude, it's so funny looking back, because it wouldn't play out like that now, you know. Like now I'm very much down to Cloud, and I love having like a back and forth and banter, but bro, I was just terrified. And I think it kind of showed in the casting. I don't think that was like my best event in terms of casting. I was I kind of got in my own head a bit. Like there was this one clip where XMS gets an ace with 5 bullets, and it's me and Sadakis casting it. Right. And bro, I just fluffed it completely. Like I fucked up the first kill, and I just kept replaying like the fuck up in my head. And so I'm just like mumbling on while this incredible play happens in the background. And then Matt at the end like drops like a big, oh, you know, like to try and like give some hype to it. But But you just have this fucking 30 seconds of me like, and I'm like just stumbling over shit while in the background, XMS is like making the play of the century. And I was like, well, that's my career done. That's me over. But, you know, I recovered.
Listen, it's better sometimes to do that than it is to try and come up with like an off-the-cuff iconic line, like the one we always laugh about. And I don't know which commentator did this off the top of my head. I can't remember. So I am sorry if they see this. But there's the one where all the other commentators used to laugh about it. And it was like, what are you made of, my man? When somebody like got an ace, and it's one of the most cringe-worthy attempts at trying, because the build, because no one believed that they were going to get the ace. They were doing that thing where it was like an almost blasé, approach to the round, like, well, he's not going to do this, and then they did do it, and then they tried to spin it around. And what are you made of, my man? I think it was Config they were commentating about, and it was just like that was the thing we always used to laugh about in the green room, like the idea that sometimes you just have to let it go because it doesn't work. And sometimes when you're doing commentary, there'll be this emergent quality to it where you realize, actually, yeah, it's happening, and I've done it all right. Yeah. I just have to let Jesus take the wheel here, and it'll all be okay. So
that's definitely something you like get more of a feeling for as you do it, right? Yeah. Like there are so many moments, man. Like if you look at, like, I think a really good example of this is someone like Vince, right? I think he's really good at like getting a feeling for how a round is going to play out before it's even played out. Like if you listen to that coldzera, the man, the myth, the beast, on Mirage, dude. That, by the way, incredible line. Vince needs, like, he should just be a top caster. It fucks me off somehow.
You know the story about coldzera making the T-shirt?
Yeah, well, so I know he made the T-shirt, but I don't know anything more than that. I just know he made the Man, the Myth, the Beast T-shirt.
Yeah, so basically, like, obviously that's like one of the legendary calls with a legendary play. And Vince just sort of woke up one day and somebody had messaged him, I think from like his community stream. So have you seen this? And obviously there it is, the Man, the Myth, the Beast. They're like Vince's words on a T-shirt. Yeah. That coldzera is selling. And like, obviously Vince was like, well, he never even fucking said no about that, mate. He didn't even fucking ask me, mate. And it's like, just the idea of it just buckles me that, like, you do this legendary call and the player goes, yeah, I'll be having that. Fuck you, like, and sells it, and then doesn't even, like, just as a courtesy say, oh, great bit of commentary there, mate.
I didn't even mention it, but like whacked it on the T-shirt.
Yeah, on the T-shirt, a million sold. I've got a mansion, and Vince is like, fucking hell, playing Mario Kart on stream for money, Oh, it's brilliant. I love it, mate. I love it. I love that happened to Vince. It's perfect.
No, dude, I love Vince, like, for real. I mean, every event I get to do with him, which it kind of feels like they're few and far between, sadly. Like, one of the last times I would have seen him would have been like a DreamHack Open. But mate, like, doing events with Vince is incredible because you've got like a great caster, but also he's just such a nice guy, like, to go and hang out with. I really love him, but like, he's someone who's very, very good at like having a feeling for how a round's going to play out, right? That's what I was saying. Like, he can just tell like when something big's going to happen. And I think a lot of the top casters are very, very good at that. Like, even if you think about the heroic, 1v5 from Katie, and you have like Alex and Chad kind of bouncing back and forth off of one another saying, oh, there's no way you can do this, right? Like, and then, it's like a big pantomime. It's almost like they knew. And it's like, well, because in a way they did know, right? They were at least anticipating. They had a feeling that could have panned out. And it's very, very weird to explain. Like, you can just tell. I can't actually think of a way to put it into words. It's just that, like, you've watched so many rounds of CS play out. You can tell when someone is feeling it. You can tell when, like, the opposition is scared or, like, looking like they're going to misplay right through all this stress. And that's, like, where you craft these, like, big build-ups with, like, the big payoffs, right? They're the moments. And that was something I used to be really bad at, was like I would try and make everything a big moment because I didn't really, I didn't have this like skill to be able to narrow it down. I would just be like any 1v5, didn't matter what they had or what was, I'm like, this is it. This is his time to shine. And I remember Red Eye like once messaged me and he's like, bro, it's real like cringe that you like, and he didn't say it like that badly. He was being helpful. But he said, like, it's cringe that you'll hype up every clutch attempt as though it's possible, because it's almost like doing a disservice to when they actually work. Yeah. And that happened years ago. I got given that advice, and like I still think about that a lot. Like this idea of, you need to like ride off the energy of what's happening and only hype up something if it's happening, or if you kind of feel like it can. Not the ones where the round is just too far gone. Like, there's nothing wrong as well with saying like this is unwinnable, and then they win it, because you're kind of just stating objectively like that the chances were low, and that makes it more impressive if they do win it. And that's something that other people don't seem to get either. Like I see comments all the time. Henry used to get these a lot. Like the people would say, "Why is Henry G saying that he can't win the round and then he gets a clutch?" And it's like, come on, like the guy's like 1v4. The reason this is posted is that it was incredible. Like, he shouldn't have won the round. That is the fact, and then you build upon that. So, yeah, I don't really know what point I was kind of answering there. I got a bit lost. I said a lot of words, Richard.
It's good.
I'm just talking over here, but I'm having a great time.
Just have another drink, mate. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, this is the interesting part now, because I don't know if you've told the deep lore before about you and Hugo. So let's get into that. Obviously, somewhere along the line, Crozzy had to go and tend to the horses.
Yeah. You make it sound like we just executed him. Like,
Crozzy. Yeah, Crozzy's with the horses now, guys. But no, Crozzy had to go and look after his horses and probably, raise some more, esports UK commentators, as a grizzled veteran. Don't worry, kids, it'll all be all right. Just Crozzy. I don't know why I gave him Red Eyes voice there, but whatever. But yeah,
anyone from old school UK esports just has that same...
like that. That'll be me in a couple of years, mate. I'll be there. How are you doing, Harry? Fucking hell, Rich, you. What happened? Just knocking on the door at 40 years old. Nothing to worry about. But anyway, the Hugh and Hugo ended up kind of like atom smashed together, kind of like pretty early on. And it's one of those pairings where you see a lot of people early in their career, the people they commentate with, like at the start, very much not who they're commentating with once they've ascended into tier 1 events. But you and Hugo kind of like came up together. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that relationship. Like, did you know each other before? Was it like just completely like at random? Because you guys are like different backgrounds and different personalities, sure, but same age.
Yeah,
same country, seem to have a similar sense of humor and like similar in a lot of ways like that. So what happened?
Yeah, it's dude, it's so wild. Like whenever I think about it. So when I was first getting started, like I've mentioned this fucking portfolio so many times now, man. But like I have my little selection of videos, and Hugo worked for this company called 27 in 1, which I'm sure you'll remember, right? Yeah. And so I'm pretty sure the owner had just finished doing a classic, dump the business's bank accounts into his bank account and fuck off out of there. I think that's what had happened, because Hugo had put out a tweet saying that like they needed casters, right? And Hugo was like the guy entrusted with collecting all the VODs and like watching it. He was only young. I was surprised that he had this much responsibility, and like knowing Hugo now as well, it still surprises me that he had that much responsibility. But he was the guy like entrusted to watch all these VODs, and I'd been wanting to cast for a long while at this point. This was before Insomnia. This was before any like official stuff. I'd done this one little online. It was for like MGEs, like it was for literal like matchmaking players. That sounds awful. Like I really hate them or something, but you know what I mean. And so I send him like all these VODs, and then Hugo gets back to me and says like, yeah, guy runs the company, took all the money and ran. So actually we won't be hiring you. And, that looked like it was going to be the end. But then Hugo messaged me like a week later, and he was like, yo, so I went through, I watched your VODs. He said, actually, I think like, you sound all right. And he was like, so do you, all right. He said like, you sound good. He was very nice. And he asked me if I wanted to do this
control.
online.
You're all right. You'll do.
Yeah. You're all right. Yeah. Bring him in. Play. All right then, boys. Yeah. Get him on the show.
Don't mind that little sofa in the back.
Going down.
Just sit down, Harry. Don't know why we've done Hugo like that.
But so yeah, I know. He asked me to to do this Game Agents online. I do this Game Agents event with Hugo, and it all goes well. And, you know, we do some more online stuff. Then, actually, we get introduced through doing ESCA Premier, right, and, like, MDL. I know that you've cast some of them as well, so you're familiar with, like, the process. You show up, you do a few hours of ESCA. We were doing that, and that was when we got introduced to Connor as well. So, like, originally, the cast was me, Hugo, and Scrawny would like play together a lot, and also Tom Biz was on there. Now he's like doing Valorant. So it's kind of like weird because the four of us were all like very good mates. We would hang out all the time. Like I was back in uni while this was happening, and you know we were just casting, like swapping around between the four of us. And now, like, all of these individual people have gone on to do really well as well. Like, you know, you look at Scrawny and Launders, I think one of the best duos in CS right now. Then, like, Tom and Mitch going to Valorant, that's sick. But then for me and Hugo, we originally weren't, you know, casting together, like, full time. That was only something that happened a little, like, later on. We were just good mates. And he was actually casting with Connor, while Launders was let me think. I'm pretty sure he was like stuck in America because of some visa situation. It was back
I think that was when
he was employed with Yahoo. Yeah. And so that was like a whole thing, right? That kind of like put a bit of a hold on Connor and Launders getting to do their stuff together. So it was Scrawny and Hugo casting for a while. And while that was happening, I was casting with Risk, who you know very well, Rich.
I've certainly ripped his trousers off, yeah. Certainly.
And so, yeah, I was casting with I was casting with Rizk, and Hugo and Connor were off casting together, and then like we had this big like shuffling of the guard, like we had like a date in place of when it was going to happen and everything, and it's like Hugo comes and casts with me, Risk goes to Danish television, and then and then Connor and Launders get to be together. It felt like a reality TV show, man. Like we all kind of paired off together. And then we just started to try and do stuff like the two of us, you know. I think it really began when like we started to get like a bit more consistency out of like DreamHack and ESL. I think they were really the big two that started to like, you know, bring us in a lot. ESL would get us to do the pro leagues, you know, like normally we'd be doing the NA games, we'd be doing like the night shifts there, and then we got to do pro league finals. The first one, like I say that we didn't. We did just playoffs, like semis, and then the second one they let us do the finals, which was unreal, and it's like still one of my fondest memories till this day because, you know, it was doing a grand final in front of a crowd with Hugo, so that was one of the coolest things ever. But yeah, it's pretty like unique path. People always say like, oh, it seems like Harry and Hugo are actually friends, and it's like, yeah, bro, like he's probably my best friend. Like this guy, you know, like we hang out all the time. Every day, like I was living at his house from the beginning of this year all the way up until 2 weeks ago. I moved out, so I basically spent 7 months at Hugo's to open up the year. All last year, we lived together in a house in Germany to do all the shows for ESL there. That's like one of my favorite things about casting is that me and him just show up and like have a good time talking about CS, and that's exactly what I would want. Like I couldn't imagine doing this job if I didn't have someone I was like as much of a good friend with, you know, like on the inside, who like also relates to a lot of the things that, you know, maybe people don't see that happen, you know, like behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of interesting watching you two work because there is like a synergy there. And that's one of the things I think, like, I never really liked the idea of duos. I think it's kind of limiting from a job perspective and a broadcast perspective. It doesn't really happen a lot in mainstream sports. You'll have one commentator that carries the broadcast and they'll give them like a secondary analyst, a color commentator, someone to work with. But it's very rarely the same two people. Usually you have a marquee commentator and then, you know, somebody else. And sometimes it can be the same dude over a period of time. That's definitely happened. But a lot of the time it's mixed up, keeps things fresh. People have other commitments and stuff. So I've always been a bit wary about it because it can give you great things and it can also be limiting from a broadcast perspective. But like out of all the pairings I've seen that have like a genuine synergy, like I don't know if the bits you're doing are like natural and they just come out, but there seems to be almost like you guys are like immediately on the same wavelength, like when you have that back and forth.
Yeah. Dude, it's wild. Like, one of the ways that Hugo like really emphasizes this to me, that like we spend too much time together, is his favorite, and I hate him for this, is his favorite thing to do, like while I'm casting, while I'm talking, is he will start to mouth the words that I'm about to say to me while I'm like describing what's happening, and it terrifies me, because like sometimes I'll be purposefully like trying to mix up where I'm going just to throw him off, because he's like trying to troll me while we're doing these like, you know, summit games, for example, where it's like the four of us all talking, and he'll just do it just because he knows it kills me, and it like makes me laugh, man, and it's so off-putting, and it's scary how good he is at doing it. Like the synergy that we have, man, it's definitely built up. Like it never used to feel like this easy, right? Like there would be times where, like early on, right, we employed like a kind of like hand signal system to, like, you know, if you wanted to like let there be some dead air, for example, you'd kind of do like this motion, right? It's like, shh.
Right.
If you wanted to like pick something up, or you needed to come in with a point, with like signal with our hands to like try and speed the other guy up. But we very quickly moved away from that, because we kind of realized that actually, like we have like a bit of a feeling as to where the other one's going, like what they're leaning into, what they want to talk about, and like a lot of the time, I'll know the thing that Hugo has like noticed in the round that he wants to like nerd out and break down. You know, I'll already know what that is from like the moment he sees it, just from how like he'll like change how he's sitting, and suddenly he like looks like he wants to start talking, and I'm like, he's got a point, like I'll give it over to him now. And just like little things like that's stuff that I think you can only have through duoing, right? Like I've got to work with a lot of brilliant commentators, but nothing can replace that like level of familiarity that I have with Hugo. I think it helps us, you know, just kind of riff off of one another so well. And Richard, I got to say, you introduced me to like a whole new element of comedy during Summit, which is this idea of like breaking the fourth wall down when you're like doing a show, and like just deconstructing the actual, you know, like elements of what takes up like a conversation when someone is in like the host position, like you, right? I love that, man. I love this whole idea of like, you explained it to me far better than I can rehash it. But yeah, no, man, I love that now. I try to do that myself, man. I'm the poor imitation.
I do in hosting what Stuart Lee does in comedy, right? Because I love Stuart Lee. I think he's fucking brilliant. He probably would hate the fact that somebody like me likes him as well, which also is brilliant. Because the dirty secret about Stuart Lee is, as much as he says, you know, it's this performance he puts on. It's a character, and he adopts a Brechtian alienation performance strategy. The reality is the character he adopts is just an exaggerated version of himself. It's not like far removed. And so when he explains, like when he comes on and says, you know, all right, now I'm going to talk about Carpet World for 15 minutes, and then at the end I'm going to do a callback to the phrase I opened up with, and that'll give this whole bit the illusion of structure, right? When he says something like that, what that does is it's kind of like, first of all, it's true. You see, when people watch a show, they know you're doing the things that you're doing, like on some level. Like it might be subconscious, they might be very conscious of it if they're like media students or whatever. So the one thing I always try and do is, if something goes wrong, right, don't try and hide it, because people know. So that's one thing I see a lot of people do. But equally, don't throw the production under the bus. You know, there's like a balance.
No,
you don't go, well, that cunt told me to throw a break, and now we're not going to break. So, and now we are we? Yeah, brilliant. You know, and I've seen people do that in esports events, and don't do that. But what you do is, you know, you have to sort of make light of it, because the audience can sense something is wrong, and when you try and cover it, it's sort of worse than acknowledging what's in the room. And so I do that a lot. And the other thing I like to do is, essentially, when a segment is repeated, like a sponsor read or a throw, or people get a sense of the structure of the show, you know, 15 minutes here, right? Well, it's sort of like sex in a marriage. You know, if you do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, you know the positions, you know your role, you know, like you know how long it takes.
Cheat. Yeah, this is why people cheat. You know, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and now I'm off to bed. Let's see you in the morning. You know, and it's like when you do a show for 3 weeks and everybody gets really bored of the structure. This is where kind of like people start to wander and go away, or they don't want to watch a desk segment. So, you know, I like to do that thing where I'll say, right, and now we're going to do this. And then because they know it's coming, and when I do sponsor reads, I make the sponsor read or a giveaway, I make it more ridiculous each time I do it.
Yeah.
So it becomes more memorable rather than just something we've got to get through. And while some sponsors don't like that, I mean, fuck them if you don't, because I'm doing you a favor, whether they know it or not. But some sponsors just want you to read the copy, and they go, oh, legal.
They've got like the pre-approved text, and that's what you've got to read.
Sponsors, the overwhelming majority, are just grateful that you're engaging with what they want to do in an interesting and memorable way, rather than sounding audibly bored while you read off a cue card. And so, I do lots of little bits like that to try and keep. It's the same structure, it's the same shit. But if you can just make it a little bit more interesting day to day, little spoilers and Easter eggs and references, there's value to the audience if they stick around, you know.
Yeah, I think that's even like memes are like the ultimate currency nowadays for like marketing. It feels like every business is hoping that they tweet some like relatable meme that just slaps off the face of the earth, right? And you know, it gets them all this publicity. Like that's why you see all these like cringe tweets from, you know, like brand accounts where they try to be really relatable and look at us, man. Oh, we're just like you, and they're not. But you know, it's like the way that you do these like ad reads and stuff, and you make it like one big, not like joke, as though like you're taking the piss out of the brand, but like in a way that it just makes it more memorable. Is really, really good. You know, like I think, I can't even think what meme it was now, but we've had some cracking memes for like products in the past, right? Like things that we've had to plug. One of my favorite ones was like when you would go and do these like CIS events, right? And you would sometimes get given like the pre-approved like bit of text to read out, but obviously it's been like translated from Russian into English, and I love the way that Russian translates to English. It is a treat. Like some of the best times we've had is just reading out like word for word what we've been told to say. Duncan, I think, does it better than anyone else, because he will just deadpan like down the lens of a camera, deliver like no matter how awful the like what it says is more like to highlight the ridiculousness of it. And I always love that, man. So like me and Hugo try to do that as well. Like we always say, especially from doing so many like secondary streams and things like that, like on our come up, there was always a lot more technical hiccups on our shows, it felt like, right? And so one of the things that we said was like, well, these are meant to be like low points, right? These are meant to be where like everything goes wrong and everything breaks down, and oh no, they're seeing how the sausage is made, you know, like oh, the curtains have come off. But like we always want to try and make them like some of like the funnier, you know, like a bit of levity onto the broadcast in a sense, right? Like a bit of just make a bit of a joke out of it, because I'm inclined to agree. Like if you sit there and freak out, and you know, we've all had moments, or we've seen people respond even on like, you know, traditional media, they respond to like a live problem by freaking out or like pausing in their tracks because it throws them off, and I think that's one of the worst ways to go about it, because suddenly you realize it's a problem. Whereas if you kind of turn it into a joke, people go, oh, that's funny, and they don't realize that everything just broke down, you know. It's like it becomes a part of the show in a way.
Well, it's live TV. I mean, that's what people have to remember. And it's like in the same way that, you know, Blue Peter brings an elephant in and it shits all over the floor, right? And, you know, what do you want me to do in that instance? And what usually happens on like a TV program is they cut away from the shit, right? Don't show the elephant's ass. Don't show the elephant's ass. No, it's still going. It's still going. And, you know, Peter Purvis, or whoever the fucking host of Blue Peter was at the time, has the light go, and Bessie seems a bit excited, probably the light. And you've got to move on with it. It's like, you know, if that was me, I'd be like, well, that's fucking nice. That is, isn't it? Bring you into my home, shit all over the floor. You have to, obviously age appropriate, you know, but you have to.
Yeah, because Ofcom would be having a word with you, quick as you can.
And ironically, not the person that shit on the floor.
Not the elephant,
But, you know, at the end of the day, everyone knows the elephant is shit on the floor. There is no getting away from the fact there is shit on the floor. Shit is still coming out the elephant that you've got your arm around and have to talk about. So what are we doing here? It's I can treat the audience like they're fucking idiots and pretend.
I love the boardroom meeting there though, because the boardroom guy is like, right, Richard, you weren't meant to talk about the elephant in the room. For crying out loud.
Yeah, literally, the elephant in the room in this example is actually the elephant in the room. A deliberate selection again, because I'm just operating on this like high level, everything I do. But yeah, so it's like, look, I think that's my approach anyway, and some people will like it, and some people don't. But the key component to that is, think about what we do. If you take yourself seriously in your old stuffy suit and tie, oh, sorry about that, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. You know, what's going to resonate more with our young audience? Is it that talking like I'm a 1950s BBC broadcasting, you know, news host, or having some fun? You know, and like making a joke about it and trying to make a meme out of it and laughing about things going wrong on, you know, on this broadcast. And I think we're getting better at it, but we used to have a problem where we just couldn't make fun of ourselves. We were so sort of insecure about what esports was. So we would never poke fun at ourselves because we knew the mainstream was around the corner to do it for us, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think that part's very true, right? And it's almost nice to be at a point now where like you can look at like the mainstream of it and go, yeah, well, fuck you, like, you know, like, and that's very, very liberating. I think it's only good for like for esports as a whole, right? Because we definitely have, I feel like, started to get a lot better at like poking fun at everything. You know, I said earlier on how like I was like very anxious and like would overthink a lot when I was younger, and I remember reading, because I used to be obsessed with like I thought I could just educate myself normal, essentially was like the route I was trying to go down. Like if I read enough about why I overthink or you know why I'm anxious, then maybe I can just like undo it through learning. And in reality, I think it was a lot more about just exposing myself to the things that worried me till they weren't worries anymore. But in relation to this whole thing, you know, to bring it full circle, I read this thing about how, you know, when people make errors and they're able to, you know, address them in a way that's like lighthearted and you know, like you show that you made a mistake and you kind of admit to it, it creates like a more human feeling. And it's like, I learned about it originally within the context of like conversation, right? And it was like, I used to overthink and overanalyze everything I was going to say in just a regular social setting, because I wanted to say like the perfect sentence or the perfect thing. I didn't want to offend. I didn't want to upset. I wanted everyone to like me, but I also didn't want to like toe any lines, you know, like, and so when you're like setting all these like impossible filters on what you're trying to say beforehand, you know, like you don't really say anything, you know, like you just kind of stand there looking like a prick, like in silence. But it was like when I dropped the filter and you know, I started to like make a lot more mistakes in conversation. I noticed that like people responded better to that than just the guy who was, you know, sat there weirdly crafting his next speech like I'm an NPC, mate. Like, you know, I'm having to generate the fucking dialogue for the future. And I think that's the same on shows as well, right? Like, you know, we aren't perfect, and I don't think you should pretend to be perfect, because I think it just perpetuates these impossible standards that we have on, like, you know, social media and things like that. Like, I'm fully down. I think you should be respectful of everyone. That's like common sense, right? As long as the respect goes both ways. But you know, all human beings are flawed, and it doesn't matter if you're some, you know, like if you're like a mega famous, you know, superstar. If you're like Jeff Bezos level of wealth, I can tell you that motherfucker's, you know, got some things wrong with him for sure.
I see because we all something about that, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like one of these things where I think that's really good that like we are able to laugh at ourselves a bit more, because it just makes it even more relatable to the folks watching at home. You know, I don't want to push this storyline that I'm like this like fully 100% mentally there, like never make a bad decision, never do anything that like is regrettable later down the line, because that's not what it's like at all, man. Like, you know, we're all just out here kind of blindly stumbling around, hoping not repeat the same mistakes as our ancestors, but you still inevitably do at some point. So you know, like I really love that things have gotten a lot better in that regard on the broadcasts.
Well, you're a host now. So
yeah, now, yeah, right. So yeah, it's a pretty new addition to the list.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, I'm sure there's a lot of people just be coming from the CS world watching this. Obviously, when it comes to Valorant, you do hosting, and you, like you say, that's what you're working at the moment. So tell me about that, because this is kind of like a new direction. A lot of commentators go into hosting, and they find they definitely don't like it, because a good host essentially is almost like the blank canvas. You're constantly tossing up the ball for someone else to dunk. You know, you don't get to do it yourself. So how have you found it?
So I've actually really quite enjoyed it, if I'm being honest. Like, casting is still very much like my biggest passion out of the two. I'm not like sat here for a moment thinking about like going to host full time in anything, you know, whether it be Valorant, CS League, you know, like I'm not going to go host full time, but I do like doing it like in the fashion I am now, where it's like, you know, I get to still be involved in like the VCT and like, you know, get to cover Valorant, because I do actually like the game, and it is in a new role, and it's exciting, and it's one where it's like, because I'm not trying to be a host, I don't feel the need to like flex any individual knowledge or like ability at any point, right? Like when I show up to do a day of VCT, Freaks for You and Riot, they like doing these like story meets and stuff like that, right? They're very, very keen on like fleshing a story out before you begin the day. And so I always like talk to the analysts, and I want to just know like what they think the key storylines are, like what they want to kind of talk about. And I try to take myself out of as much of the questions as possible, because like the way I look at it is I'm just there to tee up these people who have dedicated their whole, you know, like last like year and a half now onto this entire, you know, game and this journey. Like, I just want to make it as good for them. And because I'm not sat there going like, yeah, this is going to be my main thing, like, I want to be the host of Valorant, like, you know, I find myself not feeling like the urge to show like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I still do all my research, I still write everything out, I still have all my notes when I show up on the day. But it's like a different direction to use them as when I'm casting. You know, I'm not using them for me, I'm using them to set up other people. And actually, I really like it. I think we've had like some great dialogues because of it. You know, like it makes an interesting back and forth when it feels like I'm learning about the game at the same time as the folks watching at home are, right? That's something I think like Alex always did well when he went and did, you know, like TI and stuff like that, right? Was he's someone who can be this blank canvas to just get the ideas out of the guys on the desk. Trace does it really well as well, man. I loved working with Stunner all the last year. Like, that is very much who I based my hosting style on, right? And he leaves the field very, very open. He knows enough nuances that he can still set you up and like do all of that. But it's more so about like, you know, vibing off of what the people he's talking to are saying and using that to direct the flow of conversation. And I love that, like very dynamic hosting. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, because I always felt it when you go over to a new game, the best thing to do is let the audience know that, yes, I'm from another game. We're not going to pretend I've been here the whole time. And, you know, because my first ever hosting was in StarCraft, not CS, which is a game I've played the single player campaign. That's it. Never played online and never played competitively. Why the fuck would I do that to myself? So, because that game is
that's like being a Condition Zero player, like heading into, you know, like talking about like 1.6 or Source back in the day. Like, you know, I played a bunch of the single player Counterstrike. Like,
so why don't they just get those riot shields out and block them in the corner of the map? And, you know, shit like that, right? So I always used to say, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. and let the audience know that. And then over the broadcast, the questions would always be framed, well, I don't know much about the game, but it appears to me this happened. Is that right? Or can you explain to me and everybody else, why he was able to turn that around? And questions that were very open-ended and would leverage the analyst's expertise. Now, I know it is a little bit different because obviously CS and Valorant are very similar in a lot of ways, but I don't know, is that the approach you've been going with? Like, sort of like, hi, everybody,
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of been it, right? So obviously, me and you actually spoke on the run up to that, and you basically what you just said there, you told me, which was like also a big part of how I went into it. So I largely looked at like what you said to me. I looked at I rewatched some of the stuff from Trace, and I got to work with him a lot last year as well. And from working with Stunner on the desk over like a lot of other desk work I've done, like I looked at that and I was like, oh, I felt so comfortable here. I want to try and like recreate this for other people. So I very, very heavily like based a lot of my, like on camera, like ways of kind of directing the conversation off of how Trace does it, which is hard because Stunner is like a very unique person, right? He's got a very unique energy that I think it's hard to recreate. But yeah, so that's like largely been how I've been approaching it. It's like this idea of, look, I'm pretty new here. I'm not going to pretend like I know all these teams as well as I know, the guys from CS. Like I've been covering CS for years now, and even then, like there are times where I'll be alongside, the folks who have been doing it twice as long as me, and I still feel like I'm out of my depth. So I don't want to, be going into this for the first time in a brand new role. Like, all right, boys, the real esports starts now. I'm here, right? Like. I've been trying to just get to know everyone and like build like a nice rapport with the folks I'm working with. There's a lot of good people on the talent list for VCT, and a good few like old faces from CS as well, that were in like the tier 2s. And like trying to grind up, and now at like the top of the scene. I mean, even if you look at someone like Pansy, right, like over there, man, Pansy's fucking great, and the fact that she is like one of the top dogs in Valorant is brilliant as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I really like the team over there. I think they make it super easy, if I'm being honest. Like I never have to worry about if we got to fill, like that's always the worst. Any host is like, you get told to fill, and when it's like for an indefinite amount of time, ooh, okay, podcast mode, let's go. But with these folks, it's been super. I don't have any opinions on how to host. It's not like I've done any hosting in CS, so it's like I'm just going into it like a full blank book, and I'm just letting them write all over me, I guess, if that's how the metaphor is going to track.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, have you encountered any, of the like criticism that, oh, look, another CS person coming over to Valorant, he's hedging his bets, he's just trying to feather his nest. You experienced any of that negativity? Yeah, definitely. And I think, if I'm going to be honest, there was probably a time where I was also contributing to that negativity. Like I often tweet stuff in a pretty memey way. Like, I'm not very serious on social media. So a lot of the times when I would tweet about, it wouldn't be in a way where I'm like trying to wreck these people, but it also probably wasn't the most supportive of tweets. Right. And I can understand why people are saying it, because it's like the topic of the month. If you're like a CS fan, you're wrecking Valorant. If you're a Valorant fan, you're wrecking Counterstrike. And really, and you as someone who loves CS like you do, I'm sure you can attest to the idea that having more competition is a good thing. Hopefully, in the long run, hopefully it makes CS actually, kind of pick up the fucking slack a bit and really start to make CS like this incredible game. But there is like a kind of culture around, like with, console versus PC, or even console versus console. Like people just love to fight over opinions, and it's all subjective, right? And so I just think, like, I look at this now from an almost objective standpoint, where I say, if all these people that I liked in Counter-Strike have been able to go over to a new game, and now they're making money, they're having fun, they're building themselves up, and they're still like contributing to the wider field of esports, well then fuck it, mate, I'm happy for them. Like, I'm happy for guys like Vanity, for example. Like, dude, when that Chaos Squad got dropped, that was like one of the saddest things to happen in CS. That really was like when people were going, fuck, like NACS is just dead.
Like, you know, because teams were just disappearing left and right, and they were the big one. Well, now Vanity gets to go fucking play in Valorant, and he's having a great time, and he seems way happier for it. So, you know, like I look at stuff like that, and I think, mate, good for them. Like, really good for them. And if this leads to CS getting better in the long run, and, you know, if we do eventually replenish these players or you know, talents or whatever it may be, fuck, man. Like, I don't know why you have to hate someone for just wanting to go do something else that they find enjoyable. And, you know, for me, I just started playing Valorant a lot more. Like, I started watching it a little bit. You know, I tried to give it a chance. I realized I'd been pretty closed off before I'd even properly, you know, like with CS, I put thousands of hours in before I even started to look towards things like casting and whatnot. And so what the fuck was I judging this game after playing maybe like 20 more hours, right? Like, go give it a chance, you know, potentially coming on for this this hosting gig. And the fact that there are all these old CS people over there definitely entice me even more, because I feel like I have good links to the people who are doing it. So I already knew a bit about like the inner workings and the stories they're trying to tell. And I just found it all very, very interesting. You know, I don't think it's going to become like my main game. I don't think I'm going to be a Valorant talent first and foremost. You know, CS is the one that's close to my heart, and it's what I've done this whole time. But fuck, man, I've got room to do two things. And so that's why I don't get like a lot of this hate. The people, I've received a lot of messages from people like, you used to be my favorite caster, but now kill yourself. And I'm like, well, okay, if this is all it took, like, shit, I'm still doing CS. I don't know what more you want.
There's anti-suicide bars on the window of this hotel.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I can't.
Nah, man, it's all good. With the amount of technology I have, there's a bath in there, man. I can figure something out, right?
Just gonna leave that bit in so we can get cancelled for that. Like, how insensitive.
But no, man, I just think like let people do whatever they want. It's not hurting you. You know, like I was never someone who was that bothered about like other people, right? I mean, me and you were even talking about this, right? It feels like there is like this kind of idea of things feel pretty like tribalized right now, just across the board in like. In everything, you know, like the whole world, be it politically, be it, you know, even like on the zoomed in idea of like esports, man, everyone loves competing for something. I don't even know what the competition is, but everyone loves arguing with each other at the minute.
Yeah. So look, we're on the downslope. So let's get to the two big bits. I'll go with. I'm gonna go with the what would have been the last question, this penultimate question. So look, it's a stupid question to ask any commentator, really, because obviously I know everyone wants to work a major, everyone wants to work the biggest events. Is there an aspect to your career where, you know, if you don't get that, you're gonna be kind of like disappointed with what you've achieved, or are you a bit more, you know, kind of relaxed and sort of, you know, if it happens, it happens, but kind of just grateful to be doing all the top tier events because, you know, you do work ESL, you work DreamHack, you work Summits, you work ESEA, you know, you've done all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so as you said, the goal for anyone, whether you're like playing, analyst, journalist, caster, you know, like working, you know, as like staff on site, I think everyone wants to do a major, like for whatever reason, even as a spectator, man, like the events you want to go to are the majors because they're meant to be, you know, the celebration of Counterstrike. So that's always been a goal. Sadly, I think, you know, that's something where the pandemic, you know, potentially really kind of shafted me and Hugo, right? Because we'd never really been in like the right talent that you would go to, you know, like you would get your Matt and Henrys, of course you would, right? They were incredible. And back then, especially, like me and Hugo were no one by comparison. So, and when it is meant to be a celebration of CS, you know, you want to get the best people from across the industry to come in and you know, like it's always been what you know what's talked about. Like you get the best for the job, you pay them the best money because they're doing the best and biggest event, right? And so it's like it makes sense why me and Hugo went on a lot of them. But then we got to, you know, do the grand finals of Pro League right at the end of 2019. The Rio Major gets announced by ESL. Obviously, we had a very good relationship with ESL. We'd, you know, like you kind of get used to get sent this like list at the beginning of the year. and you know, you'd like put down your availability, so like you could notify them if there's any stuff clashing in advance. And one of the ones that was on our list was the Rio Major. Now obviously you still might not get hired, right? I'm just telling them I'm available, but it was a good sign that it was on there. And like, considering that we'd kind of been established in this relationship, we were hoping we were going to get it. Then pandemic hits, whole world grinds to a halt, esports is cancelled, everything goes online. And so it was like, you know, we got to do this one LAN event finally, and then it was like right back to what we've been doing for years before, which is all this online stuff. And I still love it. But I really want the major. Like, I'm not going to lie, it would break my heart, to be honest with you. Like, I would be heartbroken if, you know, say like year from now, majors have happened and we haven't been involved in a single one in any way. I would be kind of devastated, because I really feel like, especially for the last year and a half, like, we've really like gone all in on the esports, you know, dream. Like we lived out in Germany for the whole year. We covered everything.
Bought a green screen.
We were on the you know, we got the green screen set up at Hugo's house. I lived with Hugo for 8 months of this year. And at the end of the day, like, you know, I'm talking about video games, so I'm perfectly fucking content, like, doing that for as long as needed, because it's what I want to do. But it's like, I would like to think that eventually there's something, you know, there's that next milestone off in the distance, because it does feel like, what with everything going online, like we've been kind of stagnant for the last year and a half, right? Up until now, we've been like chasing these progressions and like these identifiable, you know, landmarks in, first studio event, first LAN event with crowd. And, you know, like we kept building up. And then like for 2 years almost, it's just been online. Yeah. And so, yeah, I do hope still that we can do a major at some point. And I really want to show what we can, where the height of a casting, you know, either an individual or a duo is. You know, it's like, all the best moments are delivered in those big competitions. And I think especially over the last year, people have come to think of us as like, oh, they're the funny casters. And it's like, I love that people think I'm funny. Like, like for me, that's one of the biggest compliments I get, is when people say I make them laugh. I'm like, fuck, man, that makes me feel good. But I want to show that I can do more than just be like someone that you watch and you go, ha ha ha, he said the funny word. Like, you know, I want it to be like, fuck, man, he got me excited. He delivered on this game, because that was why I started this whole thing. And so I hope that there's a major somewhere down the line.
So last question, all about your musical career.
No. Yes. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, if you follow Harry on Twitter, which you should, he just will randomly post clips of him fragging out and playing CS, and they'll just be him freestyle rapping in the background over a beat he's produced or something, and he does this with frightening regularity. And what I realized was, it wasn't like a meme or a joke, because when we were doing the summit together, we had a couple of nights where we would play CS, and Hugo would just be like, oh yeah, Harry's just downstairs recording something, and you would just be like, what do you mean? And he'd be like, well, he said he's got an idea for a verse, so he's just putting it down and he'll be back. And it was like, what is going on? And now you've just announced that you're releasing an EP. Which is
yeah, man.
So are you crazy? What's going on?
Yeah, man. No, it's just like, okay, so truthfully, I've always liked like music, right? Me and Hugo had this big conversation about like wanting to do more creatively, and he really wanted to learn to play an instrument. And so I was like, fuck it, man. Like, let's learn together. Like, let's look into like creating music. This is at the same time that we'd been like come on Pro League, and like we got to speak to him, and obviously his music's fucking banging. And so that like definitely spurred us on even more, right? Like the idea that you're speaking to this musician, and it's like, woo, you know, it feels very, very cool. And so I just like started screwing around. Like, admittedly, I don't really make the beats, man. I just find free ones, and then I chop them around a bit, and I like fuck around with them. So really, it's very lazy what I do. I just type the lyrics and talk, and, you know, put some sounds in. But start a meme for me more than anything, because after all this stuff happened, and we started to look at everyone in the in the grid. I think it was Grid. Was that the name of the company? Richard, do you remember this? Kieran and the and the low rates for
Grid Esports. Is the
yeah, right. So this guy, right? This guy Kieran, the one who was like the talent manager. He he used to have this Spotify. I'm just wrecking it now, but fuck it. I mean, he paid everyone nothing, so he used to have this Spotify, and he used to like put songs up on there. And man, like, you know, we've all seen like the Filthy Frank video about like internet rappers and how like when you're like 15, 16, you get a microphone, you want to just start laying beats down. They were pretty cringe-inducing, and I hope even he would admit that now.
Yeah.
But like whenever I used to listen to it, they just cracked me up, bro. They just cracked me up. And so when all this happened, and it all started as a bit of a meme. You know, like it started with the 5G one. Then we had All Balls No Dick, which is my personal highlight. I think that's the magnum opus of of all of this. And that one came from a night where we were playing CS and someone had a gun called Big Balls Big Dick. And then this conversation started around like, you know, well, you'd hope that you have both big balls and a big dick. You know, like imagine having big balls, no dick, and then boom, that was where the idea was born. Like Richard, you even threw some potential lines and verses in there, and that's what I love about this, man. Like everyone, we all love music, man. Like that's one thing that most people have in common. Like a lot of people like music. And so it's so fun to just like pull together all these ideas from everyone you play games with and just create shit. Like it doesn't even have to be good. Everything I make is shit, but I just make it in such a way that like I have fun doing it. And so the value is in the creation of it. I look at it that way, right? It's not so much about, I'm not expecting to be on fucking Billboard charts and like collecting my Grammy for you know, All Balls No Dick anytime soon, but I have a lot of fun making them. And hell, man, if even 50 people listen to it and are like, oh, that's funny, then that's fine by me. Like, I just like doing it for me, man. It's real fun.
But is there going to be an EP? Or is that a meme?
There is going to be an EP. There is going to be an EP. No. I'm stuck in quarantine now for 5 days. I've already written 2.5 songs. I've made one of them. And I want to try and get the EP to 4 songs deep in 5 days. So that's like the little challenge I've set myself. Whether or not I'll be able to do it, I'll have to see. I'm actually planning to record something once we're done now. But yeah, you know, I'm just doing it for like a bit of a personal challenge.
All right. Well, look, I will let you get back to quarantine. Lots of fun. Any final thoughts before I wrap this up?
Richard, man, I just want to, my final thought is for you, bud. Like, I've been looking forward to this since you messaged me. I honestly, I look back on Summit with so much fondness, and every interaction we've had since. I just fucking love you, man. Like I really do, Richard. And I love all, I love all the content that you make. Like the fact that you're willing to put so much into this when fucking strangers online are so willing to wreck you over nothing, or at least attempt to wreck you. They very rarely get away with it. But you know, like it blows my mind. I really think you're a treasure to all of this, and I love you, bro. Like for real. So thank you very much for having me on, Richard. I've really enjoyed this.
Well, look, man. I say it when we get free and clear. I'm about to get my second spike of 5G. So
nice, sweet. Yeah, I get mine when I get home.
Yeah, I'll be fully installed with the microchips and everything. So once that happens, whatever bullshit people are saying this week about it, so once that happens, I'm hoping that I can start
once you've like shed all your skin off and die from having it.
Once I've become an elite shape-shifting lizard person and can meet and can fly out to meet one of Epstein's clones. I don't even know, like what. Well, again, whatever it is, whatever's happening this week, right?
Yeah. It's like it's one fuck thing, it's one notch on the belt along each week. I feel like whatever it is. No, I'm excited to be vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to fucking get out the house, mate. I mean, real talk, like, and from an esports perspective, this has just been weird. It was weird doing the summit, mate. Sat here in a shirt, with my boxes on underneath, like that fucking meme about American newsreaders. And getting paid to do an event from my room. We didn't have all that green room interaction. We didn't get to hang out. We didn't get to have a beer on the night. It's like it was a great event to do, but it didn't have that same quality that you get when you do it in person. So I just want to get back to that. You can fucking spike me with whatever that enables that.
Whatever kind of like infertility you got to be blessed with to make this happen.
Do me a favor, mate.
You'll sign up.
Do the world a favor. Take it away. Take my genitals away. Just get rid of them. They're just a distraction. So So listen,
I don't know where to take that one.
Yeah. So I mean, listen. Obviously, by the way, vaccines don't do that, but.
Yeah,
you have to say that
just in case you can't tell that like we don't actually buy into this whole belief system.
Well, I've seen recent things on social media.
Yeah, very recent.
People are weirdos. There's no getting away from that. But look, it's been great. I think you're one of the unsung heroes in the commentary space right now. I think you and Hugo are great. I certainly hope you get to work the next major. I think it's your time. And I think the work you're doing for all the events is stellar. And I hope that when, you're doing the next wave of ESL, I hope you guys are off the leash and go fucking nuts, because I think a nuts Hugo and Harry is as good as anything we've got.
I'm a cry, Richard.
So there you go. I didn't even prepare.
I'm a cry, but this is such an emotional ending, bro. I feel like I'll read my eulogy, dude. This is so emotional. I love it.
Well, let's hope not.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it. It's all over, actually, at the end of this. This is where we finally go off the rails. It all goes one step too far. We find out where the limit is. Yeah.
Well, so there we have it, guys. Now, I'll just say at this point in the show, I know there were a few moments where Harry roboted hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah, sorry about that, Richard.
No, I didn't
try my
best.
best.
I
could tell when it was happening as well.
It was like it's all.
No, I can feel that it's getting way worse as well. Bad, like you push the hotel Wi-Fi too far, and you're in for a bad time. Hotel's fully booked, no AC, anti-suicide bars on the windows. We're keeping it real.
And a bottle of amaretto under the bed.
And a bottle of amaretto under the desk. Yeah, let's go.
That's all you need. So look, guys, we'll try and scrub up as much of that as we can. Obviously, you're already listening to it. Maybe it's just one of those ones you're putting in the background. But I thought it was better to talk to Harry, even if he was cyborg Harry, than to not talk to Harry. That was my opinion. I made an executive decision. Feel free in the comments to call me an arsehole for ruining your free content. How dare you? How dare you, Richard? So anyway, go support Harry. I think he's brilliant. I think he's super talented. I think his music's also really funny and good. And I'm looking forward to the EP. So make sure you get that when it comes out. And no doubt we'll be doing a collab of some sort, probably in the future. Hopefully when this pandemic's over. So we might even get to work an event. Who knows? But yeah, there you have it, guys. Thanks a lot for watching the show. I'll see you next time on another episode of this thing when it happens. Then, bye.